You think turning 70 means getting more respect? Think again. Truth is, the moment you hit that number, the world starts hating you, quietly, under its breath, as if you're a problem to be hidden, not a person to be heard. You've lived a lifetime, paid your dues, but now you're past it, over the hill, and frankly, annoying. If you can't handle that raw, uncomfortable truth, click away. But if you want to see exactly why people secretly despise you after 70, and how their own fears and insecurities fuel that hatred, keep watching. First, let's cut the polite nonsense. Nobody wants to say it out loud. Aging scares the hell out of people. That's your first problem, fear of mortality. Younger folks look at you and see their own end game. Your wrinkles, your slower walk, the way you reminisce. They're staring into the mirror of death they refuse to acknowledge. Instead of facing it, they push you away, joke about your ancient stories, treat you like baggage. So next time a youngster eyes you with that awkward silence, know it isn't kindness. They're terrified you'll remind them they're going to shrivel up too. Second, you're crushed by loss of utility bias. Society has zero patience for anything that isn't new and flashy. You built businesses, raised families, ran marathons of life. But once your output slows, even if only by a few steps, they write you off as dead weight. My neighbor Bob ran his own bakery for 50 years. At 72, he still knew more about dough than any young buck with Instagram recipes. But because he wasn't cranking 12-hour days anymore, people stopped listening. They acted as if Bob's decades of wisdom meant nothing. Your value vanished the day your body and schedule didn't match the hustle-every-minute culture. That bias makes people hate you for simply existing without constant productivity. Third, here's a nasty one, inverted respect theory. If you once held power, ran a company, led a team, or commanded respect, some folks can't stand seeing you out of office. They feel weird around you because they remember when they answered to you. Instead of honoring that legacy, they resent it. My Aunt Clara was the principal at her high school for 20 years. When she turned 70, moved into a quiet neighborhood, she expected neighbors to seek her advice. Instead, they steered clear, whispering that she was probably bossy or stuck up. It's easier for them to hate you for what you used to be than to admit you earned that respect. Fourth, let's talk about cognitive dissonance discomfort. People have this mental script. 70-year-olds are slow, forgetful, out of touch. But when you prove them wrong, still sharp as a tack, they can't handle it. It rattles their brain. It's easier to dismiss your opinions than adjust their beliefs. My buddy Frank, at 74, started learning Spanish just because he wanted the challenge. When he spoke it flawlessly at the coffee shop, the barista rolled her eyes and said, "That's cute." Dismissing him was simpler than admitting she was wrong about seniors being past it. If you make them rethink their stereotype, they'll choose to hate you over admitting you're still capable. If you're still with me, if you feel that sting deep down, hit the subscribe button now. We're not here to coddle you. We're here to arm you with the truth so you can push back hard. You deserve better than being shoved aside. You've probably noticed that when you speak at your own pace, slow, measured, thoughtful, people get impatient. They tap their feet, glance at their phones, or say, "Could you hurry up, Grandpa?" That's not just rudeness. It's what psychologists call a scarcity of attention mindset. In today's world, everyone wants everything fast. They want sound bites and instant replies. But we don't talk in 50-character tweets. We tell stories. We pause for emphasis. We let our words sink in. And that frustrates people who've been trained to expect information in bite-sized, microwavable portions. It's as if you're speaking another language. They don't respect your rhythm, so they resent you for taking the time to think, to choose your words, to share a memory. Their annoyance becomes thinly veiled dislike. They'd rather scroll through nonsense on their phone than listen to your story about the time we lost power for a week back in '78. They act bored because they've been conditioned to be bored by anything that isn't a 6-second video clip. So next time someone frowns when you're explaining a family anecdote, know that their impatience isn't about you. It's about how they've trained their brains to crave speed over substance. And that impatience turns into hate under the surface, because it feels easier to push you aside than admit they can't keep up. Then there's something most people never realize. They project their own family conflicts onto us, whether we like it or not. Picture someone in their 30s who had a difficult relationship with their father or grandmother. Maybe their parents fought all the time, or they felt neglected, or heard harsh words they still haven't forgiven. When they see a 70-year-old, they unconsciously transfer that old hurt onto you. They don't even know they're doing it, but every wrinkle, every slow step, every life story reminds them of that person who hurt them. Instead of seeing you as an individual, they see a walking trigger. So they react with avoidance, sarcasm, or outright coldness because they're defending themselves against that old wound. My friend Linda once told me about a man in his 50s who grew up with a grandfather who drank too much and yelled all the time. Now, whenever he's around older men, even kind ones, he crosses the street to avoid them. He's not thinking about sensible, polite behavior. He's running from his past. That resentment bubbles up into something that feels like hate, but it's really a self-protection reflex. He's defending his fragile emotions, not you. Yet his reaction still stings because it comes across as personal. And you never asked to be anyone's stand-in. But that's how projection works. Your face becomes a mask for someone else's pain. Some folks assume that because we've lived a long time, we're set in our ways and can't change. They call it the assumption of rigidity. They figure we can't learn new ideas, can't accept fresh perspectives, can't adapt. So they treat us like moldy bread. Hey, Grandma, stick to what you know. Leave the new stuff to us young folks. This assumption is insulting because it ignores how many of us have reinvented ourselves time and again. Maybe you learned to drive a car in your 20s, then learned to drive a van in your 40s, and then learned to drive a hybrid in your 60s. You've been flexible, adjusting to new schools of thought, new music, new tools, long before they were born. But they see you as an old book, closed and musty. When you say, "I've been following world news online for years," they scoff. When you mention you tried yoga last month, they roll their eyes. Their assumption of your rigidity makes them impatient, and impatience turns to dismissal, and dismissal turns to a kind of contempt. They'd rather avoid you than challenge their own prejudice. So if someone tells you, "Oh, you don't understand how that app works," remember that they're clinging to their stereotype like a shield. They figure it's simpler to label you as inflexible than face the truth. You can learn anything you set your mind to. But under that label of rigid elder hides a quiet resentment that says, "Stay in your lane." Don't make me rethink what I believe. And if you think you've heard them all, there's the obsolete illusion. The way people treat you like a broken-down model that's been replaced by something newer. In our tech-obsessed culture, anything that isn't the latest gadget is considered worthless. When you pull out an older smartphone or talk about a flip phone, they laugh. They assume you can't navigate a touch screen or set up two-factor authentication. They don't realize that learning new devices and apps is like learning a new language, and you've done that dozens of times in your life. But they treat you like a relic. Worse, they mock your Stone Age habits, as if history is meant only for museums. So their hidden view is, you're outdated and need to be discarded. That undercurrent of contempt makes them brush you off with a pat on the shoulder, tell you it's too hard for you, or worse, assign you to the senior tech class only to see you fail. They'd rather you give up than admit you can catch up. And that illusion that you're obsolete is a quiet form of hatred. It says, we don't want you here, because you remind us of a time before everything was shiny and new. Another nasty reason is status anxiety. Some folks are threatened by elders who have already made it. You paid off your house, raised a successful family, led an organization, or retired in comfort. You've already won some battles they're still fighting. That can make them uncomfortable. Instead of respecting you for surviving the storms of life, they resent you because your security highlights their own insecurities. Maybe they're still drowning in student loans, or can't get a steady job, or feel lost trying to figure out their purpose. So they react by treating you like you're out of touch, as if your achievements aren't valid anymore. They tell themselves, oh, that's just old luck, or that wouldn't be my life. Then they smile while putting you down. Their hidden envy simmers into dislike. They say, you're living off Social Security, or Mom and Dad spoiled you, not realizing you worked your fingers to the bone for every paycheck. They project their failure onto your success, and that twisted projection hides behind polite conversation. That's status anxiety in action. They can't stand that you're content, so they try to make you feel small. Finally, let's talk about age group tribalism, the way human brains create in-groups and out-groups. We all do it. We naturally want to belong to a group that shares our interests and experiences. But when you're over 70, growing up in a completely different era than, say, millennials or Gen Z, you automatically belong to a different tribe. That makes younger folks see you as other, as if you don't belong at the table. They might try to seem polite, asking, "What's your favorite music?" But that interest is usually superficial. Underneath, they're thinking, "You can't relate to my world." And because they put you in that other category, it's easy for them to ignore you, cut you out of conversations, and treat you like you're some foreign species wandering their space. If you mention Broadway's Golden Age or a sporting event from the 60s, they'll nod politely, yet tune out, mentally. Their tribalism creates a wall. Older people are not in our circle. And once that line is drawn, anything you say, anything you do, is filtered through that outsider lens. They assume you're clueless about modern life, so they don't bother to include you. That automatic exclusion feels like hate, because you're not even given a chance to prove yourself. Now, none of this justifies how they treat us. It's the ugly truth of how certain psychological patterns hide behind polite conversation, fake smiles, and helpful gestures. But here's the thing. Knowing these dirty little secrets gives us power. When you understand that their impatience, their envy, their fear, and their tribalism are all based on their own insecurities, you can respond differently. You can refuse to shrink. You can insist on being part of the conversation, even if they'd rather you stay silent. So next time someone sighs when you speak slowly, remind them that you're teaching them patience. Next time someone points and laughs at your old phone, show them how you still manage your finances with it better than they manage their apps. When someone tries to brush off your advice, challenge them. You call this outdated? I've been around longer than your biggest investor. Make them uncomfortable with their own biases, because that's the only way they might rethink their hidden hate. Stick around, because we're not done yet. Up next, we'll talk about how to take these psychological weapons and turn them back on society. We'll show you how to reclaim your power, self-respect, and even teach these young folks a lesson in manners and empathy. Don't let their silent hatred slip under your radar. Instead, use it as fuel to prove just how valuable you really are. Instead of shrinking back when they give us that sideways glance, we're going to use our life experience, wit, and wisdom to remind them why they shouldn't write us off. Think of it as carrying a well-earned badge of honor, because after 70, you've earned every ounce of respect and then some. Remember the impatience they show when we speak at our own pace? We can turn that around by inviting them in. Next time someone frowns while you're telling a story, look them right in the eye and say, "I know I'm not in a hurry, but this memory's worth your attention." Watch their face as they realize you aren't giving in to their rush. You're saying, "Your timetable doesn't rule me." That pause, that expectation that they slow down and truly listen, suddenly you're teaching patience. And you're showing them that depth of thought matters more than a quick soundbite. When they adjust, they'll realize your words are richer than their 6-second clips. And that might just shame them into giving you the time you deserve. When they push us aside at work or in volunteer settings because they cling to that obsolete illusion, let's respond by demonstrating practical value. If they mock your old-school methods, invite them to sit with you while you solve a problem the modern way, then solve it the way you've always done it. Show them how your experience cuts out needless steps, wastes less time, or uses fewer resources. If they laugh at your flip phone, calmly point out that you account for every dollar in your budget, because you never relied on an app to track your expenses. You're proving that old school isn't the same as outdated. When they see how quickly and efficiently you handle things, they'll have to rethink that bias, and you'll sense that little shift in their tone, a grudging respect, as if they realize you still have tricks up your sleeve. What about those who resent our past power or feel status anxiety? They might avoid talking to us, or when they do talk, they keep things superficial. In those moments, claim your space by sharing a small slice of that wisdom. Offer advice that cuts through their confusion, maybe a tip on managing a tight budget, or how to handle a tough conversation with a coworker, or how to plant a garden that actually yields vegetables instead of weeds. When they see that your experience still solves real problems, they can't comfortably ignore you. They might not thank you openly, but deep down, they'll recognize that despite their envy, you hold valuable knowledge born from decades of trial and error. And every time they think back to the solution you offered, they'll remember, maybe there's something to what the old folks say. If someone assumes we're too rigid to change, Let's prove them wrong by embracing something new and visible. Maybe take up a modern hobby, learn a dance trend, try out a social media platform for your interest, or enroll in an online class that's outside your comfort zone. Then share it casually in conversation. I just finished learning how to edit photos on my tablet. Watch their surprise when they realize your mind is still hungry. That small display of openness shows that we're lifelong learners, not fossilized relics. It forces them to reconsider that stereotype of rigidity. Each time we show adaptability, we chip away at their prejudice. It also encourages other seniors to break free of that assumption themselves. Soon, more of us will be visibly active in new arenas, and the collective effect will be undeniable. We're not stuck in the past. We're rewriting what old looks like. And when someone projects their family conflicts onto us, maybe they're haunted by memories of a harsh grandfather or neglectful parent, there's a gentle way to disarm that reaction. You don't have to become a therapist, but you can offer empathy. If you sense tension, if their voice tightens when you tell a story, try saying something like, "I know everyone's past is different. My own family wasn't perfect, but I've found peace by forgiving what I couldn't change." By acknowledging that pain and showing you've worked through your own, you remind them you're not a caricature of their hurt. You're a real person with your own journey, and that can soften their instinct to blame you for someone else's mistakes. When they see you as a fellow traveler, not a trigger, the animosity loses its grip. Let's not forget the harsh reality that many still blame us for society's deeper problems. Boomers ruined the economy, they say, or seniors resist progress. When we hear that, we have a choice. We can either retreat or we can step forward with facts. Gently remind them of the hard work that built this country. I paid into Social Security for 40 years before you even knew what a W-2 was. I served when you were in diapers. Point out that wars were fought, laws were changed, and infrastructure was laid by our generation. When they realize they're lumping us together unfairly, you'll see the defensiveness in their eyes. Even if they don't apologize, they'll think twice before making sweeping statements. And that's a small victory. Instead of absorbing the blame, we plant a seed of truth that might one day bloom in their understanding. When they toss out that fear of mortality by cracking jokes about our age, we can meet humor with humor. If someone teases, "Don't fall, Grandpa," respond with a grin, "If I fall, I'll pick up enough wisdom to build a better walker than this." Use witty comebacks that acknowledge their discomfort but flip the narrative. Yes, aging is part of life, but it's not a punchline. When they laugh at your joke, they're laughing with you, not at you. It bridges that gap. Humor becomes a tool to reclaim dignity. They can't mock you if you're already mocking the situation right back. You turn their fear into a shared laugh, reminding them that life's fragility is something we all face, not just the elderly. Underneath it all, the secret weapon we seniors have is perspective. We've seen enough years to know that most things they worry about, viral videos, hot stock tips, the latest breakup drama, won't matter next month. So when they try to drown out our voice with shouting or old noise, we respond with calm assurance. We can say, "I've been around long enough to know that tomorrow's news is yesterday's fish wrap." When they catch a whiff of that confidence, their own frantic energy cools. They realize that while they're chasing the next distraction, we're grounded in bigger truths: family, community, integrity. That realization, even if just for a second, earns us a sliver of respect, and every sliver adds up until they see us as ageless well springs of wisdom, not burdens to discard. At the same time, we must guard against letting these biases define how we view ourselves. Yes, they might treat us with thinly veiled contempt, but that contempt often stems from their own insecurities. By recognizing their fears, the fear of death, fear of our wisdom, fear of stagnation, we don't internalize their hatred. Instead, we hold our heads high, knowing that we've earned every line on our face and every wrinkle in our hands. We're living proof that time goes on, and we've chosen to fill that time with work, family, passion, and laughter. That's a life worth celebrating, not hiding. Now take what you've learned about their biases and apply it every day. Stand a little taller when you walk into that grocery store. Speak a little louder when you order your coffee. Challenge a stereotype by dressing with style or by sharing a new skill. Offer to help someone younger, not because you need to prove anything, but because you know how meaningful real help can be. With each small action, you chip away at the walls they built around your age. You remind them that after 70, you're not done. You're just beginning your next chapter. As we wrap up this part of our conversation, remember, they might hate what we represent, but that hatred is about them, not us. It's a mirror reflecting their own fears and limitations. We, on the other hand, have a choice. We can either let the world's biases shrink us, or we can use them as fuel to stand out, speak up, and shine brighter than ever. When you realize that your age is not a curse but a credential, proof of endurance, wisdom, and resilience, there's nothing left for them to hate. They may still try, but it won't stick. So keep your head high, keep your mind open, and keep challenging the world's assumptions. One polite correction, one witty comeback, one demonstration of value at a time. And when they try to shove you aside, show them that you're exactly where you belong, center stage, commanding every bit of respect you've earned, and then some. By now, you've seen the ugly truths hiding behind polite smiles and forced help. We've peeled back the curtain on exactly why so many people secretly hate you after 70. They're afraid of their own mortality when they look at your gray hair and slow walk. They forget how much you still offer because they value only what's flashy and fast. They resent the power and respect you once held, and they'd rather dismiss your mind than admit you're still sharp. They get impatient when you speak in full sentences, project old family hurts onto your gentle face, assume you're rigid and inflexible, treat you like some outdated gadget, envy your life achievements, and lump you into a tribe they feel is simply not one of theirs. In short, they'd rather push you aside than confront their own fears, insecurities, and prejudices. But this isn't a pity party, and it sure isn't a reason to curl up and disappear. Here's the final, most important truth. Knowing these hidden reasons gives you power. When you understand what drives their impatience, their envy, and their ignorance, you can choose how to respond instead of reacting with hurt. You can stand up, speak up, and shine a light on the bullshit they'd rather not see. You've earned every line on your face and every gray hair on your head. Don't let anyone make you feel like a problem. When someone gives you that sideways glance, return it with calm confidence. Show them you know exactly why they're uncomfortable. When they try to rush you through a story, slow down even more, look them in the eye, and refuse to be hurried. Teach them that your pace is worth their attention, when they mock your old ways, smile, and quietly demonstrate how those very methods still solve real problems better than their latest gadgets. When they expect you to be silent because they can't handle the fact you once had power and still have insight, speak your mind, and let your words remind them you earned your place at the table decades ago. For every impatient sigh, mention how many years you've spent learning patience. For every patronizing, bless your heart, remind them that blessing comes from experience they can only dream of. For every dismissive, that's cute, show them you can learn new things, because you've been a lifelong learner long before YouTube tutorials existed. And for every whispered, they're so old, stand up and proclaim, I'm not just old, I'm seasoned, I'm tested, and I'm still damn relevant. There's strength in numbers. Find your people. Reach out to neighbors, friends, or community groups. You'll discover you're not alone. Too often, we seniors isolate ourselves because we think nobody understands. But there are others who feel the same sting of impatience and dismissal. Invite them over for coffee. Share your stories. Form a local group where you can speak freely, laugh heartily, and support one another. When you see how many of you are still curious, still eager, still full of life, it becomes impossible for society to ignore you all. You create your own tribe of respect and solidarity, one that no fearful youngster can unmake. And don't underestimate the ripple effect you can create online. Post a short video, share a post, write a comment, showcase your wisdom, your humor, your skills. Let the world see that seniors aren't a fading background cast. We're the main feature with decades of material worth streaming. The more you project your confidence, the more you shatter their assumptions that 70 means done. Let your life be the live proof that aging is not a slow descent, but a continued ascent. Finally, refuse to internalize their hatred. Their dislike isn't about you, it's about their own fear of death, their panic over being seen as anything less than perfect, and their need to protect fragile egos. When you hold your head high, when you speak boldly, when you live unapologetically, you remind them and yourself that age is not a flaw. Age is a masterpiece. Your living art, a collage of mistakes and triumphs, of heartbreaks and joys, of lessons learned and wisdom earned. And masterpieces demand attention, respect, and admiration. So here's how you end this chapter. Stand tall, speak louder, and live larger. When they try to sideline you, step back into the spotlight. When they try to hush you, let your words be the volume they can't ignore. When they try to dismiss you as obsolete, show them that you're the foundation they still stand on. Because whether they admit it or not, you matter more now than ever. Take a deep breath. Look around at your hands that have built things, loved people, and carried memories. Feel the power in your bones, the same power that got you through tough times, raised families, and shaped the world you live in. Use that power to push back against their silent hatred and remind them that 70 is not a sunset. It's a new dawn. This is where you draw the line. From here on out, let every step be a statement. You are not invisible. You are not irrelevant, and you are not done. You're just getting started on your next great adventure. So go ahead, write your own rules, tell your own stories, and live so fully that even the most fearful mind can't help but respect the force of a 70-plus spirit. Because in the end, they may try to hide their hatred, but they can't deny your brilliance when you refuse to fade away. Now, if you want to watch more videos, subscribe. I already made more videos on similar topic, why everyone hates you after 70. Watch the videos on end screen.